Okay, good morning. My name is Gary Matsuoka, and we're here at Laguna Hills Nursery in Santa Ana. It's a Saturday morning. We're at the end of summer, and it's a nice warm morning. Um, so today we're talking about quite a few tropical plants: pandan, papaya, pineapples. We might, if we have time, we'll throw in sugarcane and passion fruit. So, I already lost my train of thought. So we'll start with the pandans. Um, This is something I really haven't grown too much of yet. We carried the first crop a few years ago, but it was such high demand, we sold out before I had a chance to grow any. Now this year we grew twice as many, but pandan is in the family of screw pines, which are a plant found a lot in swampy areas. Um, and they're called screw pines, so it's Pandanus amaryl, something like that. The pandan, and it looks kind of like a grass, but it grows kind of like a Dracaena palm, if you know what those are. But the screw pines, what they do is they have a spiral arrangement of leaves going up the stem. So that's why they call it screw pine, because the leaves kind of follow a screw pattern, a spiral going up. This variety was native, they think, to the Molucca Islands of the South Pacific, which were originally known as the Spice Islands. And on this plant, it is the fragrance of the foliage that is used for many culinary purposes. Let's see if I can get any smell out of these. This is, when they're more mature, the leaves are about 2 foot long. Well, definitely you can get a smell out of it. I think on the more mature plants, it's going to be stronger. It's a vague vanilla fragrance. And what they do with it is they'll wrap meats for cooking with the leaves. They'll wrap rice with the leaves for cooking to impart the smell. They'll grind up the leaves and make a paste and use the paste to make drinks out of. They'll also use the paste and dry it and use it for pastry, cookies, cakes. So it's very, very popular in many Asian and South Pacific recipes. Very popular. But it's coming directly from the tropics, which means that if you get these plants into 40-degree weather, you probably can lose them. So you have to be careful how you grow them. Now, of course, you can just keep them in a pot and bring them inside on winter nights. So they are, I would say, it's super tropical. Now the book says zones 9 through 11. I don't know about zone 9. That's like, well, that would be like the inland valleys. We're zone 10B or 11. We've been zone 11 for a few years now, but we still get cool weather. So most of the people around the world who grow this thing know that they don't like it below 50 degrees. 50 degrees is about it. Now, every winter, we usually get down to about 40. Now, when tropical plants get bigger, they do get stronger. Plus, when they get taller, the air is warmer off the ground than it is on the ground in the wintertime. So the taller they get, the stronger they should become, and the less cold air they should get. However, if I were to grow this in the ground, the place I would choose, like at my first house I had a house with a eave, one-story eave on the south side that extended out about 5 feet. The tropical plants did really good here. Really good here. So sun came in the wintertime, more shade in the summertime, but the eave protected them from the cold, because I had a star fruit that was growing right here in this area fruited really well underneath the eaves. That winter, a couple years after I'd planted it, we had that winter 1990 when we hit 23 degrees 2 days in a row. Anything beyond the eaves just froze off, but anything under the eaves was fine. So we know that the eaves can do quite a good protection, especially if it's a one-story eave. Underneath it, you'll get some protection. Now, the other thing you can do that's even better is at our old store, we used to do this where we had a building with a 10-foot eave, in fact. And what we did in the winter to keep it warmer, because we were in a cold location at our last store, we were built right over a riverbed, which do get really cold winter. We just hung visqueen plastic, clear plastic, from the eaves. It was an 8-foot, I think it was an 8-foot building. So we hung the plastic from the eaves and secured them with concrete blocks or cinder blocks. And that, even though we didn't enclose all the sides, it was hot underneath there. It was very warm. It was a southeast exposure. So it was really toasty in there all winter long. Even though the outside air would be freezing, we'd get frost quite a bit. The tropicals did really well placed underneath that eave with the visqueen hanging down, the plastic, clear plastic hanging down. We had to secure it real well because of the Santa Ana winds. So we stapled it real good to the eaves of the building with plastic. We used actually rolled the plastic onto a plastic lawn edging to give it a little more body to it, and stapled the lawn edging to the building. Kind of folded the plastic over the lawn edging, and then stapled both to the edge of the building and hung it down, put concrete cinder blocks to hold that in place. And that served our purpose really well to keep it really tropical in there all winter. So pandans, you'll have to do something like that unless you live in one of those, there's a few spots in Orange County that just don't seem to get cold. Some of the hills above Tustin, south-facing slopes, they seem to stay really warm. Then there's some areas on the plateau, Costa Mesa Plateau, that don't seem to drop much below 50 ever, it seems. So there are some sweet spots where you might be able to grow it as an outdoor plant year-round. I mean, the last few years, we just haven't gotten very cold at all. But still, first-year pandan plants, I would expect you'd have to protect them. And it can just be as easy as bringing them inside at night or putting... they make little plastic huts that you can put over things, and even little screens can keep the heat in. So, and a lot of these tropicals, one of the things that makes it a lot easier is to use really good soil. So 30 years ago, 35 years ago, papayas for us were one of the most difficult plants because in the potting soils we had in the 1980s, if you grew this in that type of potting soil, which is a compost or bark-based potting soil, and watered them 2 days in a row, they would be yellow and falling out of the pot. They would just rot them immediately to keep them wet. And we thought we were overwatering them, but once we found out that soil doesn't have any compost in it and started making our own soils, now we know you can water them as much as they like, as much as you want, which is every day. You can keep them in water. They're not going to rot unless there's compost around the roots. So that's one of the keys. We see on the internet a lot of people having trouble with their pandan plants rotting. And they said, we got them from the growers, they're already yellow. That's just the wrong soil. A lot of that. Because these are people talking from Hawaii and from other places, and they said, oh, the plants just died on us that we bought. And that's just plants in the wrong dirt, because most potting soil sold, even places like Australia or New Zealand, they're usually made out of a lot of organic material, and a lot of that just rots on you. So that's important. Now pandan plants, as they grow, so they have a central stem that actually multiplies quite rapidly. So you'll have a central stem with the leaves, 2-foot long leaves attached to it. And they'll make side branches with leaves attached to them also. And what's interesting is all these stems are making aerial roots, which help support the plant, but they just kind of hang out in space like that. And on this particular one, you can see, you might be able to see this aerial root coming off the side of this stem here. That little root there, just starting to come off. It's got one on that side and one on this side starting to grow, because they're a little wobbly. But once they get those aerial roots helping to support the main stem, it helps stabilize them. Now, the place where you grow these, now, you know, we don't really want you to harvest anything this size. You want to wait till the leaves get mature, which is about 2 foot long, and the plant may be 2 foot tall. So it may take you a whole year and a half to get that size. Exposure wise, a lot of people who grow them in the wrong soil say you have to keep them in the shade. So we're watching this one video of a gentleman up in San Jose who says they can't take full on heat. We haven't seen any burning on them in the right soil. So now what we would do, because they like high humidity, so they come from a very humid climate. They don't like it hot, dry, wind. That would not help them out. So keep them on a protected area. Don't put them against a hot block wall or next to a lot of dry, hot pavement. That I would avoid. But full sun around other plants, I don't see a problem with that. At our growing ground area, a lot of these things are getting about 2/3 day of sun, but they're among other plants. So that helps keep the humidity up. This summer has been quite humid. Of course, we usually have to watch what happens in late fall when we get the dry Santa winds. That might really mess up the foliage on these. We'll see what happens. Now, we've had these for almost an entire year already. When we got them, they're tissue culture grown from a place in Florida, and they came in about that big. So really tiny little plants with real skinny leaves. And you know, last year was cool the entire year, it seems, and this winter wasn't cold, but it wasn't great. So they just sat there and sat there and sat there in our greenhouse all winter. We have an unheated greenhouse, but it usually won't drop below 50 in there. And then finally around June of this year, we got a little bit of heat and they started growing finally. So we know they don't like it cool at all. They'd rather have it, you know, like where they come from, it's probably 70, 80 degrees at night and 80 to 90 degrees in the day on these tropical islands. So they're liking this. You know, right now it's 70 degrees at night and about 85 in the day. So they're really liking it right now. So that's the Pandan. Any questions on these? Okay, papayas. Now those pandans, the leaves are smooth and soft. There are other pandan plants that we don't use for food that have leaf edges that are very spiny, but not these. These stay nice and green and soft. Now this is the first papaya class we've had in a few years, because the last 3 years we just couldn't grow the plants. Our weather here in Orange County, California has been so cool the last 3 years, we couldn't get the plants any size at all till the end of by the end of the year. They just didn't have any size. This year, which is still cooler than normal, we're still running cooler than normal all summer. At least it's warmer than the last 3 summers. So we got some seedlings to get some size. So we have a chance this year, and hopefully by the end of the year, if it stays warm for at least a month or so, the plants will be a good 3 foot of trunk. We like to see that before the first winter, about 3 foot of trunk, because that'll be a fairly thick trunk by that time, and they can actually start blooming by then too. So in Hawaii, it takes papayas 6 months to get, well, 3 months to bloom and maybe 9 months to get the first harvest. But in the tropical places like Hawaii, 80 degrees every day and 60 degrees, 70 degrees at night, it never gets cold there. So our papayas here usually shut down in October, or at minimum by November, they stop growing. And they'll sit there all winter and get going again the first sign of heat can be in April, that it's warm enough for them to get going. And this year we actually had a little bit warmer April than the last three, but usually it's May or June when they finally get going. So we don't have as long a season to grow them. Now there's quite a few different kinds of papayas, and generally they're listed as small, medium, and large. Papayas are native to western Mexico, so they're all Mexican. You can't really say they're, like the small ones usually called Hawaiian, but they're from Mexico. But the small papayas, we just call them Hawaiian papayas for some reason, even though they're from Mexico. And the medium ones, and then the large ones. This would be one of the medium ones. Actually, you can say medium to large, because this is a Miradol, which is found in a lot of supermarkets. And there are different sizes, and there are different kinds of Miradol papaya. Some are bigger. Like there's one on the market called Improved Miradol, and it's a bigger one. And this is more of a medium size Miradol papaya. And then Hawaiian ones are usually the light bulb shaped ones. So small, medium, and large, they're all grown from seed. Most people grow them from seed. You can grow them from cuttings. Now this is a Mexican type papaya that my daughter had in her yard. That was, when she bought the house, it was already there. So it was successfully producing fruit. So she took the seeds and made this tree. This is, first year was here, second year was here, third year looks like it stopped growing here, fourth year stopped growing there, so it's probably in its fifth year of life. The funny, unusual thing about papayas is there's 3 flower sexes, and the plants can change their sex. Like this is a female, but right now it's throwing out male flowers because it's weak. This has been here so long that it's totally root bound now. If it was really healthy, the leaves would have they'd be out of another foot in all directions and have bigger leaves. But because this has been in this pot for now 5 years, it's just root bound. And it's struggling to get strength, so it's making male flowers than a female. So the male flowers are usually shaped like trumpets, tubular with little flowers on the end of them. A female flower is usually shaped like this, and a hermaphrodite flower with both sexes in the same flower. So this is male, and this is female, and this is hermaphrodite. It's a longer flower. And usually the male flowers, if you have a male papaya, instead of having just single ones like this one showing, what they usually do, so the flowers appear at the base of each leaf. On the top of the leaf where attached to the stem. If you have a male papaya, it usually does this. It throws out a long stem that divides and divides and divides. And on each end of each stem is the male flowers. So they'll make clusters, huge clusters of tiny flowers. They're fragrant. You can tell it's a male because you get this group of them. And then the females are usually made right at the base of the stem, and often you have a cluster of one big one and two small ones. And so is hermaphrodites made without much of a stem length, but the flowers are longer, and you often get three of those too. So if you have a hermaphrodite, that's the nice one to have because they're all supposed to make fruit. They're self-fertile, they make fruit. The females, the book says you don't get fruit. We've always gotten fruit on females, no seeds. So the fruit comes without seeds, the fruit comes out smaller. So the female can be pollinated either by a hermaphrodite nearby or by a male nearby. The males usually don't fruit at all. However, they can change, all these can change sexes. Like you see, this was a female and it changed, mixing some male flowers. Now I think it's starting to make female flowers at the very top. Yeah, I think some of those right at the top are changing to female flowers. Maybe if I give it some fertilizer and more dirt in there, it'll be stronger. But we had a male plant once that was making a whole bunch of male flowers, and then suddenly it put out one female flower on the end of the branch. And then it started making branches like this. All male flowers, one female flower on each branch, and it had papayas hanging really low. It was interesting, it did that. So we've seen them do all kinds of things where the males stay male and then suddenly switch and make a female among the males, and the females changing to males. So interesting to what they can do. Now there is one serious problem with papayas. And it's a disease that's gone around the world. It's called papaya ring spot virus. And I was told back in the 90s when I was talking about it that it wasn't in California, but I just saw some literature yesterday saying that papaya ring spot virus was officially detected in California in the 1960s. I think 1965. It was found in California. So when they get that ring spot virus, the symptoms are really hard to see. A few of the baby leaves come out warped. I have some in the nursery that are really warped. So the new growth, instead of being a nicely shaped leaf, it comes out stringy. A few of them come out stringy, then it switches back. As the plant gets strength, it switches back to normal, then you can't tell it ever had it. But when I first grew papayas in 1980, early 80s, I just took seeds from papayas at the store, both Mexican and the smaller Hawaiian, and grew them. The first year I got plants about this big, no flowers, no fruit. And the second year they made it to 6 feet, no flowers, no fruit. And some people from Hawaii visited me and they said, those are beautiful plants. Why aren't they fruiting? And I didn't know why, because they look fine. They look fine. But after 2 years, they were this big, no flowers, no fruit. Third year, they made about 5 flowers on each one and had about 3 fruit that wasn't very good. And I thought, boy, you can't grow papayas at all that are worthwhile. After 4 years, it takes the fruit over a year to ripen in Southern California. And by the time they were ripened, they were half rotten and not very good. I thought, no use even growing papayas. So I cut them down and didn't touch them. until about 5 years later when I read about papaya ring spot virus. The papaya ring spot virus makes papayas in the tropics produce about 10% of what they normally should be producing. So instead of 30 fruit a year, you're getting 3. So I said, okay, that's what's gone on, as my papayas all had this virus in them that I didn't even know about, and the fruit is not good. One of these symptoms on the fruit skin that you'll see are these vague ring spots. So there are these spots on the skin that are circular, covering the fruit. And I kind of remember that we've seen a lot of papayas with these vague blotches on them, slightly sunken, and that was probably the ring spot virus. Now, we were told that someone told me back in the 80s, 90s at least, you can't get ring spot virus here because we don't grow enough papayas, but that's not true. The papaya ring spot virus infects the entire cucurbit family: cucumbers, watermelons, cantaloupes. They all catch it, but it doesn't hurt them. So they are carriers of the ring spot virus, even though it doesn't affect them. But an aphid is the one that transmits the disease. So if you have, people around you growing watermelons, pumpkins, squash, and there's aphids, a lot of aphids in the spring and summer, then they can transmit the disease to the plants when they're really young, and you'll have this disease all its life. Now, papayas aren't supposed to be related to pumpkins and squash, but when you look at the flowers, and the leaves, it looks like a watermelon leaf, and the flowers look similar. I mean, there's male watermelon flowers and female watermelon flowers, and they look like papaya flowers. I'm thinking, papayas are just a melon on a stick. They got to be related. And they catch the same disease. So, but they're not supposed to be related. But I think they're both native to Central America. I think squash came from Central America, watermelons, I think they're all native to the same area of the world. So they may indeed be related to each other. But anyway, papaya ring spot virus. So this was going around the world in the 1960s. And by the late 60s, by I think the early 90s, they said Hawaii was so infected, and the farmers were just having to grow other crops because they couldn't make a living on papayas anymore. So University of Hawaii and Cornell University in New York, they got together to see if they can fix it. And now plants, unlike people, we have immune systems. So when they have a disease that we want to become immune to, they take the disease and kill the disease. When you cook a virus, you break into a lot of little pieces that can't do anything anymore. But then they can inject that dead virus into us, and our body goes, oh, we don't want this thing, so we're making antibodies to kill this virus the next time it sees it. And that's essentially how animals can get immunized, put dead viruses in you. Plants don't have an immune system, but they tried it anyway. They want to see if it worked, and it didn't work. But then they thought, let's try a little different method. So what they did is they took the virus, cooked it to kill it, and put it into the nucleus, into the DNA of the papaya cell. And that papaya became immune, and they don't know why it works. They don't know why putting a dead virus into the nucleus of a papaya cell then makes it immune to that disease. So from that, they created this papaya that was really weak, but they crossbred it with another papaya that was really strong to create in Hawaii the rainbow papaya. which is essentially, when you put a foreign virus into the nucleus, it's now a GMO papaya. And the EPA's official standing on it is not a problem. I mean, everyone is by now eating this virus because all the papayas in Hawaii, essentially on almost all the islands, are infected. And if you eat an infected papaya, each cell of that fruit you eat had something like 70,000 copies of that virus. But the virus protected papayas, each cell had a fraction of that, just pieces of the dead virus in each cell. So they're saying this is since plant viruses don't attack humans and this is not a foreign virus, it's been found in papayas for the last 10 years now. They didn't consider it to be a problem. However, in Hawaii, a lot of people were protesting this new GMO fruit, and they started hacking the trees down on the farms that were growing them. I think people have gotten a little better now. They're more satisfied that it's not that dangerous because it's just the virus, dead virus in the plant. Essentially what we're full of, dead viruses. so but the only way to get the seed for this, to grow these, is to know someone in Hawaii and have them find a rainbow papaya, labeled rainbow papaya, because we can't get the seeds for this virus protected papaya from Hawaii. Apparently it's only sold in Hawaii to the farmers, but if you get the seeds, and now this is an F1 hybrid, if you get the seeds out of this fruit, half of them will be virus protected and half of them won't. So we did that. I had a friend who went to Hawaii, found the rainbow papayas, brought the seeds back to me, and for a few years, the seeds live about 3 years out of the fruit. We were growing rainbow papayas and then or F2 rainbow papayas. So we had to tell people, yeah, there's a half a chance that this will be virus sick and half the chance that it will be a healthy plant. So buy at least 2 of them. Hopefully your odds are good. So that's the rainbow papaya. But there's a lot of other papayas created around the world now that are being virus protected because the entire world's got this virus now, rainbow papaya ring spot virus. So Bella is one that's virus protected. And Red Lady, whoops, I didn't bring a Red Lady. So Bella is one we can get, and so is Red Lady. I can't remember where these were made. I think Red Lady may be from New Zealand or Australia. Bella may be from the same areas. There's Tai Nung 2, which is from Tai Nung, I think that's Vietnamese. But they're doing that all around the world, virus protecting the papayas in order to grow them properly. Bella's going to be a fruit about this size, about the same sweetness as the Meridol, which is sweeter than most Mexicans, but not as good as the Hawaiian. And Bella's similar. I didn't bring a Bella in here, but Bella's medium-sized papaya. It says good sweetness, but not great sweetness like the Hawaiian papayas are. And I mean, there may be someone on the market selling rainbow papaya seeds F2, but I don't know. I haven't seen it. I'll have to look at it again. Here's a Red Lady. So Bella and Red Lady are virus protected. Now, the Mexicans we're growing are most likely Meridol. And I grew Meridol in the 1990s, and Meridol is not virus protected, but it's fairly virus tolerant. In other words, it gets the disease. You can see it in the young leaves, but it fruits anyway. In fact, some of the Hawaiian papayas are like that too. They fruit anyway, but Meridols, when I grew them in the 1990s, we had no problems. They seem to grow just fine, flower, make fruit fairly quickly. We used to tell people if they don't flower within a year, it's sick. And it's nice to see the flowering within. I remember when we first started growing these Red Ladies and Bellas and a few other virus protected papayas. After 3 months, they'd start blooming. But those were the hotter years where it was, hot all summer, not just and heat wave in April, warmer. So by end of summer, they were already 3 foot tall and at least 2 foot tall and already making flowers. In fact, in those days, we didn't want to sell the papayas until we saw them bloom. Then we know they weren't sick. But in the last few years, we just haven't had the heat. Now, 10 years ago, 2014, 15, 16, those were great papaya years. We didn't have any winters. Or we had winter, but we also had 90 degrees right in the middle of winter, those 3 years. So there were papayas all over my neighborhood, growing just fine, all fruiting real nicely. And then around 2018, we had some cooler weather, and most of the papayas in my neighborhood disappeared. They froze in those years, even though it wasn't freezing. It was cool enough to kill them off. So we get these grace periods, and we've seen it over the years. The early 80s were hot winters. The late 80s were the coldest winters we've ever recorded in California. The 90s were fairly cool, but gradually getting a little warmer. And then 2014 through 16 were no winter at all. But I do have a friend who lives on a south slope, hills behind Tustin. Papaya has been there forever. Just that south-facing slope on a hill. No cold air up there at all, it seems. He's had a papaya up there for such a long time. So it's nice to have more than one papaya. Now, the seed company that sells the seeds for Bella says that 50% of them are hermaphrodites, both sexes, and 50% are female if you plant the seeds. And Red Lady is the same, 50% hermaphrodite, 50% female. Maridol is supposed to be 66 hermaphrodite and 33 female, however, which is what most wine papayas are. This is a modern Maridol. Maybe this one the seeds of this one might do that. When I was growing Maridol in the 90s, I seemed to get from my seedlings half female, half male. We're getting a lot of males. Now they do say, the seed company does say they've been breeding selectively the Maridols over the last 10 years or so. So they may have changed the makeup of hermaphrodite to female while getting hermaphrodites. Whereas when I grew Maridols back in the 90s, it was seen to be half female, half male. Solo papayas, the Hawaiian types, tend to be this mix, where they said if you get a male papaya from seeds of a solo Hawaiian, you're really unlucky, or really lucky. Any questions on papayas? Now papayas, usually we grow them in the ground, but if you're in a bad location, what happens, I lived where we had real bad clay soil. I lived on a hill, but in Missionville where it's cooler, and in clay soil, what would happen to my papayas is that they would just, in the wintertime, if we had a lot of rain that winter, they would just rot and the whole trunk would fall over because the roots rotted in that cold, wet soil. But the trunk's so strong on these, we just stood it back up and it re-rooted for that year. But then it fell over the next winter too, because that was the time when we had like 2 El Ninos in a row. And I lost it that second year. But what I did is I put a papaya in a 20-gallon pot, bigger than this, in pure volcanic rock. Because papayas don't seem to use that much water. So we had pure volcanic rock. It was drip irrigated daily to make sure it had enough water. And I had a Maridol papaya in there for about 4 or 5 years that did, we were real happy with that. Did really well. So it finally rotted out when we had another El Nino. That was a time late '90s when we had 3 El Ninos in 4 years. It was just it was a great time for our water, you know? But we had a lot of rain at that time. So I lost the one even in the volcanic rock. But yeah, so you have to be lucky to grow papayas, have to have a good warm year, followed by more good warm years and not too many El Nino winters. Now this winter is supposed to be a weak La Nina. They said it might go neutral on us. But right now La Nina, which means a drier, in theory, cooler winter, but they're not predicting a cooler winter. They're predicting a normal winter with drier weather, which might just be like last year. Any questions on papaya?
How long can you keep the papaya? I heard after 5 years you don't produce that many fruits.
Well, for us, this last few years, it's been too cold. You need a nice warmer year to grow good fruit in papayas. But my friend who lives on the hill, his papaya is probably over 10 years old. It's not young. It's been there a long time. It's always seemed to have fruit on it. So location is key, and the weather is also key. But the last 3 years we couldn't even grow them. We couldn't get them this big because it was so cool. You need to stay above 80 degrees to have any chance to grow papayas. In the last 3 years, the summers were just cool. And this year is still below normal. They said in all of California is still below normal for this summer. I mean, we're above normal today, but you can probably count the above normal days for this year on two hands. The rest of it's been below normal. Yes.
What if you pot one in a little wheelbarrow and wheeled it in a garage and pulled it?
I've seen a man doing that. So I was driving through a neighborhood in winter. I saw this guy with papayas in his wheelbarrow, pulling them out of his garage, but in his front yard. Now, a good friend of mine, he would put his papayas in the kitchen every winter because it was southeast facing and it was all glass. He's been divorced twice now. But they were pretty good in his kitchen. I tasted one in there. He had red ladies in his kitchen, and they actually tasted pretty good.
If he had, construction-sized wheelbarrow with a tree in it, he put supporting plants in that for that too.
I didn't quite catch that.
You plant other plants in with it on the base. Are good enough.
I haven't. I mean, papayas take up a lot of, they take up a lot of room in there.
So you're supposed to sell it with it.
Yeah, I just leave papaya by itself. So, okay, I think I got everything on that. Okay, pineapples. Pineapples are native to eastern Brazil. This is a store-bought pineapple, but a number of years ago when we had hot weather and I was growing a lot of pineapples, they would look exactly like the ones in the store, except we would leave them until they were totally orange so they'd be riper when we picked them. Because when they turn orange, they get a lot sweeter and more fragrant. At my current house, unfortunately, when I let them ripen, the squirrel just gets them. I totally ate them up. So get rid of that squirrel somehow. But now you don't have to buy a pineapple plant from us. You can just go to the store and get a pineapple, and you can take the top. So you cut the top off, peel away the flesh, peel off about 5 rows of leaves to expose a little bit of stem, and you can stick that in a glass of water until it roots out. And then you plant them in a container. Now, they like it hot. So we'd like to see them, a lot of people will start them in a 1-gallon black plastic, nice and hot. You can use our top potting soil. But I had my best luck with the pot half, I would say it was 2/3 pumice rock and 1/3 top pot near the top. Because one of our local people, it was Mr. Kwan, who lived in Villa Park, he had articles in the Sunset magazine in the 1980s showing how he was growing pineapples in essentially black volcanic rock with a little bit of compost on the surface to hold some moisture. So we did that in the 90s in a black plastic pot, mostly pumice with a little bit of our own soil near the top, and we put them in the hottest place we could find, south facing black top, this asphalt, black container, right, sitting on that, and boy, we had pineapples that looked just like this size, and a lot better tasting. Now, I first started growing pineapples in the 1980s, and unfortunately, we got hit by the coldest winter ever recorded. December 1990 hit 23 degrees 2 days in a row. My beautiful pineapple plants in my backyard turned to mush. So we stopped growing them for 5 years because we thought, boy, these winters we have are too cold. But we have never seen anything close to 23 degrees ever since. So, we may see it again. Weather goes in cycles. So we'll see what happens. So pineapple. So this is a tissue culture grown pineapple. And we got this one because it's a little bit prettier than most pineapples. So it's not quite as, well, it's got a white edged leaf to it. So it's a little more attractive than just a regular green leaf one. And it's not very spiny. Some pineapples you buy at the supermarket have real spiny edges on their leaves. And then the plants that have a real spiny. The one thing to know about pineapples, the leaves are very brittle. They snap really easily, so keep them out of the walking path because you'll break all the leaves off. When we used to do farmers markets, we hated to take the pineapple plants because we kept breaking the leaves. Pack the truck up, breaking leaves, pull them out, breaking leaves. So the leaves are kind of brittle that way. But nice hot location. Now, they can bloom any time of the year. We always like to see the blooms in spring, and it's a pretty flower. So it comes up, the stem comes out of the middle of that, and you get this thing that looks like this, and there are purple flowers all over that initially, and then it becomes a pineapple with more leaves on top. Now, the plants, one rosette of leaves will make the flowers and fruit, and then it makes side shoots that come up, and then of course it makes this top that you can plant also. The side shoots on a mature plant usually fruit in a year and a half. Well, in Hawaii, a year and a half after they plant a side shoot, they get fruit. From the tops of the fruit, it takes them about 2 years to get fruit. For us here, maybe 2.5, 3 years to get fruit from top versus a shoot that grows off the side of a mature plant. So they multiply quite a bit. And eventually, they get pretty top heavy, so you put it in a bigger pot. Usually the biggest pot you have to go is maybe a 15-gallon, or you can grow them in the ground. But the nice thing about black plastic, it is hot. And they seem to really appreciate the heat. We do carry a bromeliad fertilizer that I use to grow the big pineapples. I have it on one of these shelves. Grow more bromeliad and tillandsia fertilizer. And that's what I actually use to fertilize when we got the real big fruit. 17,8, 22. It's a lot of potassium, iron, manganese, zinc. there's other pineapples we've carried also. So we got the regular store stuff. A few years ago we had white jade. And later this year I may get some sugarloaf. And both of these have slightly smaller fruit, not that small, with white flesh, and they're both coreless. So you can eat all, it's not a big deal. I mean, there's a slight area in the middle of pineapples that are a little tougher. As a kid, I like to chew on those. But these two are essentially coreless. Sugarloaf has got spiny leaves, white jade doesn't. We also did Elite Gold a few years ago. Don't have those in stock right now. Any questions on pineapples?
Do you carry sugarloaf here?
A friend of mine's growing it. He's supposed to give me some plants soon. So maybe in a month. I'm not sure. He might come sooner. Yeah, I have white jade in my house, but I don't have enough to propagate off it yet. So. Okay. Now we can do, since we have some time, we can do some of the other tropical things. So one of the fruits that everyone likes to grow because it's so prolific, especially this year, these are passion fruit. And if you cut them open, the outside is definitely a shell. Cut them open, you have about a couple ounces of juice in there with greenish seeds that, let me open one second. So when I was growing up, one of the popular drinks was Hawaiian Punch, and the flavor of Hawaiian Punch is passion fruit. So it looks like this inside, kind of orange. It's real thick and real fragrant and quite acidic too. So it makes a real brightly flavored drink. Some people, just get a spoon, scoop this out, and eat it as is. You can put it on ice cream or cake or anything, and it gives you a real nice flavor. The seeds are soft, in theory edible. Everybody eats the seeds, so probably a little better if you just juiced them and got rid of the seeds, but most people don't take the time to do that. So anyway, that's passion fruit. This is a passion fruit plant, both of these. Now usually passion vines are short-lived, but it may be due to being grown in the wrong dirt. So most growers put passion fruit, or most plants that they grow, into a compost-based mix, and we grow them not in our own top pot, so they look like this versus this. So you can see the color difference. This wouldn't, by itself, would look green, but when you put it next to one of our plants, it looks yellow. So, and a lot of people who grow these say, well, they only get 3 years out of them. Well, what might be happening is the soil around them turns this black sludge, and that eventually may kill them. Whereas our soil should stay nice and airy, and they should live longer. Although we lost one at the nursery, one that was making hundreds and hundreds of fruits every year. one winter, but we think we might have cut it back too hard. Because I've had a few customers tell me that their passion fruits are well over 10 years old. But a lot of the literature on the internet says 3 to 5. And a lot of it says 3. And I think that may be plants rotting out due to compost around the stem. Now, this is passion fruit. There's most passion vines, even the ones that are considered ornamental, can make fruit if they're cross-pollinated with a genetically different plant. In other words, you grow 2 passion vines from seed, they're genetically different, and they'll cross-pollinate. This is Passiflora edulis. And most of Passiflora edulis has the purple fruit, just like this, and they're all self-fertile. And generally, within a few months of planting, they're making flower buds. This one's already starting to make flower buds up here. And this one, which I did from a cutting just a few months ago, this was planted in July. So I took the cutting probably 1 month before that, and no flower buds yet. But it's probably just a few weeks away, especially with the warm weather we're having right now. And it'll bloom all the way through most of fall and be making fruit. Now, this variety here is called Tanaka. So there's quite a few, a lot of it on the market is just seedlings, and a lot of it is variety. So this particular one here is Possum Purple. We've also carried Red Rover, which are essentially round. And then this Tanaka, which is one of the newer ones, or maybe the newest one we've been able to get, is more elongated and slightly bigger than the Red Rover. And we can't say it's better tasting, although everyone's saying that this fruit I brought in from the one at my house is a lot better than the ones we're getting from other customers of different varieties. However, it may just be the setting and how well I take care of it more than anything else. But Tanaka maybe, which is a variety developed in Japan, might be better than the other ones. I also have Frederick out there. Which is a cross between the round purple ones and the elongated yellow passion fruit. Now, yellow passion fruit has been difficult to grow here. We're not hot enough. So if you're in the tropics, yellow passion fruit, which are longer and bigger, really good, really tasty. But we haven't met many people who've succeeded in growing here. It seems to have a higher need for heat than the purple ones. So we keep trying. But the first one we grew, someone gave us a fruit that they had got from, that was imported, that was that big, a yellow passion fruit. So I grew some plants from it. We grew 2 just in case. And the plants looked great, bloomed the first year, no fruit. Second year looked great too, no fruit. Third year we put them in the ground, and by the end of the 3rd year, they made 1 really small fruit, and then the whole plant died. So we haven't seen much success with the yellow ones. But the yellow ones do have, this Tanaka is pretty good though. But the yellow ones do have I would say a little sweeter flavor than the purple ones. And everyone who's eating the yellow ones really likes them. Last year and early this year, we sold some tissue culture from Florida. What were they called? Passiflora. Gosh, I can't remember what they're called. And they're supposed to make football-sized fruit. But we were just passing them out to people to try it and see if they can get something out of it. I'm not sure. I think my daughter's growing one at her house. So I'm not sure they're going to get much because we're just, compared to Florida, we're very cool. They have at least 3 times as much hot water than we do. So again, if you have any of the flowering passion fruit, so a lot of the flowering passion fruit, if you only have one plant, you won't get any fruit. But if you have 2 different passion fruit, and a lot of times different species will cross, then you can get fruit on them. Like they say that the ruby glow and the purple tiger can pollinate each other and both make fruit about the size of an orange. Don't know how good they are. Now we are trying to get a hold of more, because we used to sell one called sweet calabash, but our plant died after about 6 or 7 years. It died. And that one is a fairly good sized fruit, and it's not purple. It's kind of a bluish, greenish, grayish. And the flowers are much larger. So the flowers on these are usually about this big. The flowers on the big yellow ones are big. And then the flowers on sweet calabash are not only big, but the flowers hang upside down. They look like little umbrellas with purple filaments hanging out of them. So we'll see if we can get those back in stock. We have people asking for it. Any questions on passion fruit? Now, the ornamental passion vines, especially Passiflora caerulea and its hybrids, are very subject to attack by a beautiful butterfly, the Gulf fritillary, kind of orange and silver, and its orange and purple caterpillars. And when I was younger, when I was a kid, I used to raise the caterpillars on them, but occasionally they can get so bad that they consume the entire plant. But they don't seem, these plants all seem to be poisonous to the Gulf fritillaries. They can't eat these ones that are especially for fruit. They can eat the maypop, which is a passion vine native to east of Texas. Throughout the Gulf states and the East Coast, they have maypop passion vines, and the butterfly caterpillars can eat those, and they make decent fruit too. We used to have one out here, but that one you have to be careful with. They root sucker all over the place. So if you have one maypop in your yard, it's all over your yard. Oop, little jumping spider. Okay, we can talk a little about sugarcanes. So you can buy a piece of sugarcane at the store. It might be alive, and just set that in dirt. You see, this is a piece of sugarcane here, a section about so long, and you just put it sideways in the ground. So the way sugarcane's native to, they think it came from South Pacific or Southern Asia, some of those islands, Malaysia area. They don't find any sugarcane in the wild, so it's something that people hybridized back thousands of years ago. I guess someone was smart back in those days, as a hybrid between different plants that are found there. The way these things normally propagate, so they don't run underground like some bamboos. Some bamboos run, some bamboos just cluster like this. So they act like a clumping bamboo. But what happens to sugarcane is the stems get so long, they get up close to 30 foot tall. They just fall on the ground. They just collapse and fall on the ground, and then they sprout out along their length. So they can, out of these little pieces of stem, there's a leaf bud on the top of that stem, and there's root buds on the bottom of the stem. And then on this next one, it's on the opposite side. But if you stick these stems on the ground, they start growing. Because that's what happens in nature. They just get too tall, and like a hurricane might blow them down, or they just fall over from the weight, and then they'll start growing on the ground. So in Orange County, you'll see these easily 20 foot, 25 foot tall. They grow about 3 foot. Well, this year they're not growing very fast. In the last few years they haven't grown that fast, but normally 3 to 4 foot a year. In Hawaii they would grow them for 3 years, and then they would cut them down and harvest them. I don't know that they have any operation. Well, they might have a few sugarcanes just for show now, plantations, but these are grown throughout the world in tropical, subtropical, and even some temperate climates that are hot. Like the Gulf Coast is temperate, but it's so hot there they can grow a decent crop of sugarcane really fast. But in Hawaii, they would, when they were big enough to harvest, which was again 3 years, they would burn off all the leaves because these leaves have sharp edges. And if you see anyone who works in a sugarcane plantation, they're covered in in canvas outfits with goggles and leather gloves on them, because walking through these, you'll get all scratched up. It's like getting paper cuts all over your body. So they burn all the leaves off to get rid of them. The stems don't burn, and then they cut the stems down and process them. This one here with purple stem, green leaves. So they come yellow stem, green stems, purple stems. We like the purple stem because that's supposed to be a little more tender and easier to chew on if you want to do it that way. The yellow and green stems tend to be thicker. This particular strain was smuggled in from Cuba. So one of our former employees' sons, their ancestors were from Cuba, so they went visiting and brought some sugarcane back with them from Cuba. This is from Hawaii. So this one here has purple stems and purple leaves. And in Hawaii, they call it Pele smoke. So a little different color. And I have one customer who bought a bunch of these, and they use it as they have a slope behind their house that goes down to a major street. So they used them as a screen. So it looks like bamboo, grows like clumping bamboo, so it doesn't run. It just makes a bigger and bigger clump slowly.
Are they related?
Well, it's a grass. And bamboo comes from all the world. I'm not even sure that all the different bamboos are related, but anyway, it grows like a clumping bamboo, and they'll get up over 20 foot. They look a little ragged in the winter, just like bamboo does, because they don't grow in the wintertime, and the wind kind of bats the leaves up a lot. But they look really good from mid-spring through until winter. We did a project once where a artist that had an exhibit at the Bowers Museum wanted 110 sugarcane plants. So we propagated 100 of them for him so he can show off his art exhibit that had art from his when he was a child in Vietnam. And so a lot of people from hot climates of the world, their childhood was near sugarcane plantations. A lot of people who move here from the deep south want to grow sugarcane because they remember that when they were kids. Any questions on those? Okay. All right. Thank you.